there was a comment a long time about how the T in LGBT was silent. And maybe what I'll do is I'll just start the show over here. I've got to go with my second. Hey everyone, welcome to my Sunday show. Take two. And yeah, let's start off with, while the video finishes, let's start off with having this conversation about the problem I had with the Vosh video defending Ollie. Yeah, as noted here in the chat, it takes a lot of courage to transition. And I think that, you know, I don't want to get into like any sort of issue of like what the right would call oppression Olympics. Like, coming out as gay is hard, absolutely. I can, however, appreciate, let's say it this way, if you are cis and gay, then the change you have to make is people's perceptions of you. And those are obviously, depending on your background, your family, very difficult, challenging, emotional, and I hope our society is making that easier, but obviously every individual circumstances are different. I can appreciate, though, with people who are trans, depending on what they want to do in terms of their physical transformation, there is also that level of burden as well. And so when you're cis, that's a thing you don't have to face. And when you're trans, it is. You know, you don't necessarily have, as a gay person, the kind of challenges with pronouns. Now I want to say, like, you know, like people who are non-binary, obviously, getting pronouns right is an issue. But for like a cis gay person, their challenges, I think, have been more mainstreamed in that way. And I still feel like that within people's framework for understanding and being empathetic and knowing how to be a good friend to trans people, I'm still learning how to be a good ally. I know I slip, but I think people understand, you know, like sometimes when Kevin and I have talked about Peter, when I see his beard, but that's it. Like when I look at Peter and I see the beard, my binary, you know, cis thing kind of just unconsciously pops up. And so I have to practice. But, you know, screwing up and practicing sincerely and being willing to go, oh yeah, you're right, I think is, you know, like for people who, my experience is most trans people will accept that as she messed up, but she's trying. Like, she's really not good at this yet. But to just sort of treat it as like, yeah, the butt of a joke, I think it's distasteful. I think it's hurtful. I think it's understandable that people who thought that you had their back, and then you make their life experience, which sometimes people end up getting kicked out of their homes, not having relationships with their family, medical challenges, expenses, surgeries, all of this stuff ends up being incredibly, you know, like, it has entire dimensions of challenges that cis people just don't face. So that's why I think that it wasn't wrong to give that feedback to Ollie. Vosh also said that he was canceled. Then he failed to provide. I mean, I watched about half the video and I just found it so annoying I had to stop because of his mansplaining and his cisplaining and his lecturing and his shaming and his, you know, Vosh goes on and on and on about the woke scold left. And here he is making a video scolding trans people and their allies for having an opinion other than his own. What a hypocrite. What an absolute hypocrite. I just find it incredibly distasteful, and I don't understand why, like, people put up with it. And I guess, you know, my answer is, you know, it's like, well, as long as you're anti-capitalist, that's all that really matters. As long as you want to destroy capitalism, then yeah, we can pretty much tolerate all your other crappy views, because the kind of world that predominates on the YouTube left is younger, white, cis guys who play at having empathy with issues that are confronting people with identity politics, but ultimately just sort of like, it feels like they tolerate that as part of the price of getting what they really want. And I don't like that vibe. It just seems like performance rather than really understanding emancipation. You know, they're really good at understanding economic emancipation, but they can't transfer that empathetically to other situations. So, yeah, it was another example of the dirtbag left for me. And, and Ollie would be fine from getting some feedback and again, even in the comments, there wasn't the kind of cancel tweets that people were talking about. Most of it was like, please take this down. Like, do you understand how this can come across to people? And I thought you were kind of like more in tune with our issues than that. And I don't see why that kind of feedback is worthy of Vosh telling all those people, no, you're out of line. It's a joke, bro, or sis, or, they. So let's see. Hey, my project is uploaded. Whee! All right, let's see now if it has been synced to this computer. Up to date. It's telling me it's up to date. I don't know if I believe that it's up to date. Let's checkity check. Dropbox, clips. Hey, there it is. Okay. I think I have to put it on the local drive. Not view on Dropbox. Okay, yeah, you can. I think we can open this in Dropbox. That'll work. Or cheer. Let's see. Smart Sync. That's the one. Local. It's not that long of a clip. So we'll give it a few seconds. I think it only needs like a couple minutes to sync here. And I was so excited. I made this little video and I used like all these effects. I can't make it work. Oh, that's my life. Yeah, so I don't know if we need to talk about it on the Monday show now. We'll see. I kind of feel like venting here. Hey, DN fan, you missed me having a disastrous open of the show. You missed me having a go at Vosh for another instance where I just feel like he's a fake ally and not an actual ally. The fact that he is not sympathizing or even... See, here's the alternative. Like, what Vosh could have done with that video instead? Why not give legitimacy to people's feelings who are giving feedback that this felt that Ollie's philosophy tubes flippant, offhanded, dismissive, butt of the joke tweet, that their feelings were valid. Instead of rushing to the defense of the person who was being offensive, who's supposed to be an ally, why not actually speak up and say, hey, yeah, like when people give you this feedback, like you might think it's one thing, but here's why we need an open mind and listen to people. All right, I finally have the video done, so it should be working. I'm going to double click this now, and we'll get the VLC player up, and I will set it up in pause. All right, pausing. All right, I don't even have excellent. I don't have the sound on yet. I feel a sneeze coming on. Am I gonna sneeze? Yes, I am. Oh, what a crap show! Why are you guys tune in for this stuff? Alrighty, dighty. Right. So this is just a little how it started, how it's going, meme reference, and yeah, I made this. I got up a couple hours early and started putting this together and realized I actually should have done this yesterday. We'll go with what we have. And then we'll look at the evidence out there to show that there's no evidence of voter fraud. So this will also, I think I'll make this a separate video. You guys can tell me what you think. Sound 50%? Sure, why not? Let's try it at 50. Why not 80? Okay, 83%. We'll see how that goes. I made this.
A democracy only works when there is the consent of the losers. In any democracy, by definition, you're going to have a minority, potentially a substantial minority, almost but not quite 50%, who are going to be opposed to the winner of the democratic election.
That's true.
By definition, right?
Not by definition.
Therefore, for the democracy to continue to function, it's not an issue of the winners maintaining the democracy.
I've got to maintain the democracy.
It's the responsibility of the losers.
Oh, interesting take.
The losers in any democratic contest, they have to accept the results. And if they don't accept the result, there cannot be a democracy.
Oh.
The next time your progressive or Democratic friends or whatnot, the people who opposed Donald Trump, the people who opposed conservative candidates, when they say that Donald Trump doesn't respect democracy and that democracy dies in darkness, ask them if they respect the democratic outcomes, if they respect the democratic will of the people.
I'm just going to point out here at this point, do you see Democrats demanding recounts for the Senate seats that they didn't win, or in the House seats? Are the Democrats making allegations without presenting anything in court that the House races where they didn't win are illegitimate, but the ones that they did are legitimate? How about with the Senate? Is that, oh wait, no, they're not doing that. The Democrats are actually, even though it was a mixed bag, they're accepting the results for better or for worse for us politically. Interesting. So it's really a responsibility of the losers to make sure that democratic process goes forward and not just deny the results of the election. So let's just hear that one more time.
Because if they don't, if they keep on fighting against the fact that they lost,
right? Don't fight the
if they
fact
keep
that
on
you
doing
lost.
everything they can to delegitimize the election.
You don't want to delegitimize the election just because you lost, right?
Then it sort of like proves that they, the progressives, the leftists, the losers, do not believe in democracy.
Oh, so it's the losers who refuse to accept the results who don't believe in democracy. Interesting. Super interesting take. Let's see. Just like I said, it's an important point. I think we need to appreciate this.
Because if they don't, if they keep on fighting against the fact that they lost, if they keep on doing everything they can to delegitimize the election, then it sort of like proves that they, the losers, do not believe in democracy.
Yeah. Tell it to them.
Tell it to them. Tell it to them.
If they inaugurate Joe Biden on January 20th, 2021, know that you are a chump for accepting it. You are a fool, and they are playing you for a fool. You're a chump and a loser, and you don't deserve your democracy. If you accept that result, if you accept that inauguration, know that you were cheated on, and they got away with it, and you're just sitting on your ass doing nothing. Loser. The election was stolen, and nothing anyone says will convince me otherwise. That's just how I think about it.
Because if they don't, if they keep on fighting against the fact that they lost, if they keep on doing everything they can to delegitimize the election, then it sort of like proves that they, the losers, do not believe in democracy.
Yeah. Tell it to them.
So that was it. I made us the entire show late for that. I made that for you guys. And that's his hypocrisy. That's his hypocrisy. So, Trans Gamer Girl says, yeah, it could have been a complete non-issue had Ollie just accepted the criticism and acted on it. But Vosh had to come in and stir the S. Absolutely. I mean, I think that if you look at the comments that were made underneath Ollie's video, sorry to keep switching back and forth between these topics, but I think Ollie had a lot of like extended credit and benefit of the doubt, and people who are like, I kind of thought better of you. Like, I kind of thought you would know not to do this. Or, you know, I think you're trying, but this ain't it, mate. Right? It's really not that hard. And especially, like I said, if somebody is supposed to be an ally, then I don't think the job of an ally is to tell people who have hurt feelings that they're wrong for their experience of having felt let down or slightly like side-eyeing somebody that you thought was, has claimed to be on your side. And that the real victim in those situations is the person who screwed up. That to me is not allyship at all. And that's why, Vosh could have said, hey, I think Ollie's a good person, and I think that they really want to do what's right, but here's some criticism, and here's ways that you can think about it and take it on, or look at it from this perspective. And instead, he tries to scold people and into silence, and shame them into silence, and saying, you're the problem. The real victim here is Ollie. What? All right, so what are the, so again, switching back. All of these allegations are fraud. Giuliani, can spell it, which I can't. Giuliani. Yeah, Rudy Giuliani. No fraud. Because that's what he said. This is not a fraud case. Yeah, so there are all of these allegations on the right of fraud. There's no evidence for this. There's a lot of feels, there's a lot of anger, but there is no evidence of this fraud going around. If it, and here, let me put this out here. If it could be demonstrated that millions of votes had been added to the totals, or people had their votes changed or not count, then yeah, we need to investigate that, because we need secure elections. People's faith in democracy rests on the idea that it was, a fair run at the fair bite at the apple, can you say? And that it ended up being one person got more votes than the other. If that's manipulated, then that's a really serious concern, A, for democracy. Two, there have been crimes committed. You're going to make allegations of widespread voter fraud. You're basically saying there is a criminal conspiracy against the United States. That is a serious, serious charge. And it's one that, if true, would need to be prosecuted at multiple state levels, and how the conspiracy was developed, who was involved, how they managed to implement it, and how they managed to escape all the checks and other systems in place to make sure that it doesn't happen. And yet, there's no evidence of that. What they seem to be mad at is that a lot of votes from the mail-in counting got dropped in a certain period of time, despite the fact that, they're not objecting to all of the Trump votes that came in beforehand. They don't understand, motive voting effects. And a lot of just empty accusations that have no basis in fact. And how do we know this? John Doe asked, don't they keep the original paper ballots locked in a secure location after the election? I think part of the challenge with this, frankly, being an American, is that there are 50 states, so there are 50 different, well, more than 50 places states can vote. You've got DC, you've got Puerto Rico as well. And I think, I don't know how many other territories or stuff. And you've got overseas votes, which are always going to be mail-in votes if they're overseas, right? And so how they are handled are all dependent on the state level. When I voted in Wisconsin, I voted there in person in 2018, and I had a physical paper ballot, and they kept them. But I can't necessarily say that sort of Scantron paper ballots are available everywhere. I'm pretty sure for these recounts, though, they are, in Georgia, they're hand recounting them. So, I think they should. My personal preference is absolutely you should always have a copy of the paper ballot. I don't think we should go to purely electronic voting. If we have a pure, a pure electronic vote, you should get a copy of your ballot, what you voted for, as a PDF that says, completed something on it as a watermark and some security, just so that you can, there's an automatic PDF copy generated, so every single vote can be linked back to, a voter, not the vote content, but the fact that it was printed off and that person says, yes, this is when I voted. So yeah, there needs to be, of course, you have the secrecy of the ballot, so you can't link people's completed ballots to their names. Otherwise, it's no longer a secret ballot. So there's kind of a two-step authentication there. But if there is such a problem with election fraud, then how is it that on November 12th of 2020, the federal government, Trump's own federal government, issued a statement that there is no evidence that any voting systems deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised? This is Trump's government, right? So why would they be putting that information out if there was this widespread fraud? Because he runs that part of it. Now, I also saw, and I don't know if I'll be able to get up the right article. Oh, what's this? All right, yep, let's take a look at that. There was an article I saw yesterday in the Washington Post, and it was about the fact that Trump's allegations are not being picked up by the Justice Department. Justice, maybe it's in my bookmarks. Department, silent, voter, fraud. The whole, yes, this one. I thought it was WAPO, but clearly it's not. This was from 17 hours ago. And it makes an excellent point. Now, if you probably don't remember, that's okay. There's a lot of things that have happened. But for those of you who do, or if you want to be reminded, Trump and the Justice Department, well, his corrupted Justice Department, in my opinion, rolled back rules or changed rules that kind of put up a barrier between federal investigators and state election frauds and state election investigations. The whole point of it was to make it easier for the federal investigators to step in if they found instances of voter fraud. So let's go ahead and look at this. And the fact is that, sorry, despite that being the case, they're not doing any of that. They're not getting themselves involved. So let's have a look at this first. The Justice Department has met Donald Trump's claims of widespread voter fraud with 2 weeks of skeptical silence, not taking any overt moves to investigate what Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani claims is a globe-spanning conspiracy to steal the election. Such deafening silence from one of the main election law enforcers indicates how little evidence there is to support wide-ranging claims made by Trump and his supporters, notably Giuliani, in a news conference. The Washington Post reports. See, I thought it was a Washington Post article. Here I was thinking that. Yeah, I think this is just a repeat of this article here. Privately, right. Such deafening silence from one of the government's main enforcers of election law indicates just how little evidence there is to support the wide-ranging claims made by Trump and his supporters, most notably Giuliani, in a Thursday news conference held inside the Republican National Committee headquarters. Privately, the Justice Department officials have said they are willing to investigate legitimate claims of voter fraud. Attorney General William Barr even loosened some restrictions that might otherwise have discouraged prosecutors from doing so before the election results are certified. But current and former officials say they thought Giuliani's accusations sounded, quote-unquote, ableist term coming up here, crazy, and they have not seen or heard of any evidence. They have not seen or heard of any evidence suggesting large-scale fraud, let alone the kind of intercontinental conspiracy described by the president's lawyer. Like others, they spoke on the matter of an anonymity to discuss politically sensitive matter. Also, they don't want to get fired right before Trump left office by having their name added to it. The Justice Department is a very powerful battleship, but there are limits to its jurisdiction, and an awful lot of elections and contested grounds is on land or in the air where the battleship doesn't do you a lot of good. Federal enforcement officials have also said they want to avoid getting dragged into investigations that lack any reasonable basis of suspicion. In many of the affidavits cited by Giuliani and other Republicans, the assertions amount to ill-defined suspicions and conjecture about what might have happened, not witness accounts of actual misconduct. So there you go. Like, the Justice Department says, we don't see anything credible here. We don't see anything credible. The joint statement here from the Infrastructure Committee, Government Coordinating Council, Executive Committee, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency said there's no evidence of any voting system deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was any way compromised. You can be mad, but if you don't accept the results of a valid election, then you are the losers who are not believing in democracy, Coach. That's kind of that's the standard you put up for us. This is a standard you held up for us, right? Even Giuliani in court. Oh my God, the top-ups on this is so annoying. Said that there was no fraud. So, while Trump's lawyers have conspicuously refused to embrace the language of fraud while standing before judges, right? In a recent Pennsylvania case, Giuliani alleged widespread national voter fraud in his opening remarks, but under questioning from the judge, he retreated. Quote, "This is not a fraud case," unquote, Giuliani later admitted. In the same case, Trump lawyer Linda Cairns said explicitly that she is, quote, "not proceeding," unquote, on allegations of fraud. So if Trump's own cybersecurity people didn't find a problem, and the Justice Department doesn't think there's any evidence of prosecutable voter fraud, and even Giuliani says that there's no fraud, this is not a fraud case, well then what is the purpose of objecting to the election results? And it's only to delegitimize people's faith, not a legal argument. Sorry, I'm going to have to cough again, so I'm going to mute myself. They're not making legal arguments. They're not bringing real evidence. They're not showing that crimes were committed. They are trashing the reputation of American democracy because they don't like the results. And if you look back at 2000, the difference was, like, I'm old enough to have lived through the 2000 result for the 3 days that it was sort of hung in the air. We didn't know who was going to be president. I very much felt like Al Gore had been denied the presidency. Especially, and that was reinforced much later. If you look at the butterfly ballot design in one of the counties in Florida, the way that it was designed was that Al Gore was next to or across from Pat Buchanan, and voters could have, and looks like did, easily mess up a vote for Al Gore versus a vote for Pat Buchanan, because the Pat Buchanan vote was like higher than anywhere else. Like, it was an outlier in terms of how he had gotten votes in that election. So anyway, Al Gore had a legit case of objecting to the way things had been processed, but when he was a grown-up, when he put democracy in front of his own ego, I unhappily accepted, not necessarily that George Bush was legitimately my president, but I didn't agitate against him, and I didn't spend, like weeks saying that he wasn't legitimately elected. The right, like people like Cope, Red Pill, want to police the left with our own higher moral standards, with our own aspirations, and they want to use language like that to try to, in this case, it would be try to sort of like shame and bully people into accepting a result by making accusations about their intentions, right? So, like, oh, when Trump wins and you say this, then you're the bad person, you hate democracy. But when they have to apply that standard to themselves, that is when you really show the difference between people who are committed to democracy and people who want to harness the power of democracy to legitimize authoritarianism. And Coach is an anti-democratic person. He does not believe in democracy. He doesn't believe in supporting the results of a majority or a plurality of the voters if it doesn't provide a veneer of legitimacy to his far right, sexist, bigoted, homophobic, transphobic, misogynistic approach to power, because he thinks that there are a group of people who are better and dominant, and there are people who should be subservient, and then there are the people who are normal and the people who are deviant, and the people who are normal are the ones who deserve the power because of his opinion, not because they've earned it. So anything that provides a legitimacy to a worldview that he doesn't like or approve of, well, then that stops being legitimate to him, because he doesn't actually believe in the idea that power goes back and forth. And if you study political science, at least in like the Western democracies that I've looked at, there is a pendulum of society. And I think that the thing that I take on board as being positive as someone who believes in progressive and moving our society forward is that we're actually, like, when we swing the pendulum, we make little steps forward, more to the left. I guess I should do it in this direction. And then there is a swing back to the right, but there are things on the right that get left behind little by little. And it's a moving target for both the left and the right, because it would be very difficult, I think, now to have people who are in the millennial and Gen X generations to go back to the kind of homophobia in the aggregate, like the entire groups, that we would have seen, let's say, in the 1950s and 60s. I think society has just moved on. And I think there are people, obviously, who are still homophobic, but the way that they operate, the power they have, the credibility of their arguments, the people who are influenced by them have fundamentally shrunk and changed. And people are finding, the Pope, who's got issues, don't even I won't even argue that, but he acknowledged secular or civil marriages between same-sex couples. This is the same institution that took centuries to acknowledge Galileo might have had a point. So that is societal progress. Is it enough? No. But is it proof that we are moving things, that we are moving the goalposts, or moving the ball down the field? I guess not the goalpost, but the ball down the field. Absolutely. You didn't oversleep. Sib, I screwed up the first half hour of the show so bad you wouldn't even believe it. So don't even worry about it. All of the mads in the world, all of the feels in the world, all of the stomping of the feet and name calling isn't going to be a legal argument in a court. So my challenge to Coach is put up or shut up. You talk about all of these problems, and other than the fact that you're assuming because an area voted for a Democrat, therefore it's corrupt, which is a logical fallacy, and it just shows the weakness of your argument, and it shows that you're being led by your feels and your angries, not any facts. Those falsehoods are a way for you, it's just copium. It's just a way for you to deny a reality that you can't process. And when you are arrogant enough to try to pre-lecture the left on what it means to, accept the election results or not, well then, honestly, you've got to hold yourself to that standard. I mean, I think, personally, you're morally obligated to practice what you preach. And if you can't bring the facts, if you can't bring the receipts, close your mouth. Shut up. Just shut up. Because you're not helping democracy. You're undermining it. You're doing the thing that you're accusing your enemies of. And we see you, Coach. We see right through you. Yeah, priority. Sorry, you'll have to go back about 20 minutes for me taking the P out of Coach. That is about it. I'm gonna have a short show today. What I will do is I will upload my little video to the channel here, so you can watch the temper tantrums, and then I will try to have a longer show next week. Sorry, my voice is crap today, and two, I am in the midst of preparing a 90-minute workshop that I have to deliver at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. It's on how to do a good elevator pitch when it comes to research results or a funding proposal or your whatever you want to like service or product. And then I'm doing on the power of storytelling. I'm going to try to incorporate some of the things that I'm learning into the show. So next week I wanted to do a little check. Oh, before we go. Yeah, I know that Carlin B had her heart set on this one equal protection amendment court case that she'd cited from some far-right attorney. She was absolutely certain, I think this is going to be a really good case. And I have been waiting to see whether or not, fuzz. I've been waiting to see whether or not this case has been taken up by the courts. And I think this might have been the one. So there's the thing is with the Trump administration, there's so many cases. It's like going on 40 cases that they've filed. They've lost all but one of them so far. But the one that, sorry, I just saw a trans gamer girl, like, we're going to the opera in our D&D game. Yes, that's happening. That was what that yes was. Harlan's one had to do with the method of equal protection in terms of how people had access to their ballots. It wasn't to do with how close or far away the poll watchers were. And so I'm been keeping an eye out. I think this is it. And if it is, we can talk about this more in depth next week. I'll do a little Carlin video on how it actually worked out. So this was supposed to be the best shot. This was supposed to be the thing that was going to go to the Supreme Court, absolutely going to go to the Supreme Court, and overturn a whole bunch of votes in Pennsylvania. It was going to like be the thing that, brought down the lie about Biden and how the election was run. A lawsuit brought by President Trump's campaign that sought to block the certification of Pennsylvania's election results was dismissed by a federal judge on Saturday evening. U.S. District Judge Brand granted a request from Pennsylvania Secretary of State Kathleen Boockvar to dismiss the suit, which alleged that Republicans had been illegally disadvantaged because some counties allowed voters to fix errors on their mail ballots. Honestly, what it seemed to me is that some counties had their S together and others didn't, but that doesn't mean that people were disadvantaged if they all had equal opportunity to do the same thing. You see what I mean? All right, so the judge's decision, which he explained in a scathing 37-page opinion, was a thorough rebuke of the president's sole attempt to challenge the statewide results in Pennsylvania. Brand wrote that Trump's campaign had used, quote, strained legal arguments without merit and speculative accusations, unquote, in its effort to throw out millions of votes. I'm going to have to show you what Carlin said and then compare it to this. This is, chef's kiss. So good. Quote, in the United States of America, this cannot justify the disenfranchisement of a single voter, let alone all of the voters of its sixth most populated state, unquote, Brand wrote. In a statement, Giuliani said they would appeal a decision. Trump was beaten in Pennsylvania by Joe Biden, who has a lead of more than 81,000 votes. The lawsuit's dismissal concluded a tumultuous 12-day legal bid. The president's defeat was the latest in setbacks that he suffered in a scramble to overturn losses in key states. All right, so I think what we can do next time is, please be the opinion. Please be the opinion. Oh, yes. Oh, I'm getting a little frisson shiver of excitement here. All right, 37 pages scathing I'm not lawful masses. I'm not Leonard French, but perhaps we can go through. I will go through a little like he does earlier and pick out which bits to read out. And I'll show you Carlene's lead up video, and then we'll look at the actual case next week, and we will see how deluded she was by reading a National Review article of a guy who clearly doesn't have a command of the legal facts in the case. Yeah, right. I'm sorry this was such a rubbish show, everybody. I'm sorry I was so unprepared. The thing is that on my Coach Red Pill or Cope Red Pill video, one I see that I had a little crying baby face that didn't make it into the post, didn't make it into the final version, and I was playing around with the chipmunk voices. So now that I have a little bit of time, I might go through and list all of his because I have all the videos. Not all of the videos, but I downloaded like the ones that were relevant to the election. And now that I've got a little time this afternoon, what I'll do is I'll expand on what I showed you here and upload all of his discredited allegations about it matters who counts the votes. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I've got other things to do today, like finish that presentation. So before I go, I will see whether or not you guys have anything to say in the chat. It's absolutely fine if you don't. I'm sorry that this wasn't a little bit longer. But yeah, I'll see if you guys have anything to say in the chat skis. Otherwise, you should see if Leonard French would be up for a collab video. Yes. I don't think I'm cool enough quite yet. On that though, I do think in another life I would have been a pretty good attorney. Maybe not. Maybe I would have been crap. But I've been watching season 2 of Making a Murderer. I don't know if you guys watched that series at all. And it's not like spoiler alert, it's a documentary. So it's not like I'm giving a plot point away. But I have to say that when I watched the first season toward the end, when they did the second trial, the fact that that key was found, I always found dodgy. I was waiting for the part of the documentary where they really went after the police for how can you search a house multiple times and then a couple days go by and then suddenly you find something that's, a key? Seriously? The other thing that I really did not accept from the first season was especially the shape of the bloodstain near the ignition. It looks like somebody just drew it on there. So, I don't know, he paid a lot of money for those attorneys, their salaries. They should have spent that money on, blood experts, DNA experts, and blood spatter experts, because by the time, it got to this section where they're looking at the actual blood evidence, yeah, absolutely it was dodgy. Absolutely. Anyway, I don't know, that's a whole thing. But anyway, but taking apart like every single piece, like here's the blood evidence, here's the key evidence, here's the tracking evidence, here's the dogs and where they went, here's the timeline. I mean, I kind of I am not enjoy, but I am intrigued by, I'm captivated by that kind of puzzle, like figuring out what the evidence tells you. And if different pieces of evidence tell you different stories, you go with where the evidence leads you, and then you kind of try to figure out how did these things come to be the way they are. So anyway, so we'll do a little reading of the 37-page scathing comments, and I will read through it earlier in order to make sure we don't get into technical stuff that I can't comment on. Just the very obvious stuff that anyone just reading it could get to. All right, guys. Yes, apologies again. I'm glad it was chill. If you want more chill, I'm more prepared for my D&D session than I was for today's show. But doing the D&D session didn't require me to make a video. So, but if you want to come over to my channel in our campaign doing the Dragon Heist, also Acquisitions Incorporated mashup, now including Tasha's Cauldron of Everything rules, changes, and options. We have, our party just met a dragon and managed to have a nice conversation and make friends with their second dragon already so far in this campaign. And now they've got an invitation to the opera where they're going to meet their contact for the Harper's faction to be offered a job, which I think they knew was coming, but so spoilers. Anyway, I will be back with more geeky politics stuff and a video with Carly B. Carlin B. Poroshenko next week Sunday. So until next week Sunday, guys, have a great day. Stay healthy. Try to stay or be happy, and definitely stay safe. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Wear a mask. And keep away from people, especially if you have any like invitations to Thanksgiving. Just do it at home and have all of the leftovers for yourself. For those of you in America. For the rest of us, just keep doing what you're doing. Like so. Until next time, I have been Christy. You have been awesome. Thank you, and bye-bye. I'm not on the right page. I'm so unprepared today. Okay, goodbye.